Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. This week, we're talking about stuff. So first of all, shout out to Rick Ritchie for this one. Stuff stands for stand up for fitness. Now, this philosophy is put very simply. It's that we want to stand up for at least about 5 minutes, interrupting every 30 minutes of sitting. Other people are going to tell you 10 minutes for every hour. Either way, it's sort of about the same amount of time, right? And I think before we go into what this might look like in real life, I think we also need a bit of a reality check. Maybe this is even potentially a moment of reckoning. So are you ready for this? You can be fit and sedentary. You could be active, even a gym rat, and be sedentary. Think about what we do. We spend most of the day sitting while we work. Even if we work out for an hour, we spend most of the day sitting, right? Other than that hour. We go home at the end of the day and we sit on the couch. We're commuting. We're sitting in a car, on a train, on a plane, right? Maybe we break it up with a little laying in bed at night. But for most of us, if we were to tally the position of our bodies every half hour throughout a day, the majority of our hours and minutes are sitting. That's why we have a challenge with sedentary lifestyle. And that's why, we can be a gym rat and live a sedentary lifestyle. So I always say, when sitting comes up or people say, sitting is the new smoking, I say, it's because it's not human to sit all day. Well, it's also not human to sit all day and go berserk for an hour, which is frankly what we do in our modern workouts. So today we're adding to that conversation to ensure that we all realize most of us are still living sedentary lives, and myself included. So remember our nutrition nugget on dead butt syndrome? That's part of the sedentary lifestyle thing. I had a call with a client yesterday and he was saying that his low back hurt. So we discussed that it's probably connected to not moving enough, that sitting too much, the front of the hip getting tight, and then feeling it pull in the lower back. And we also know that sedentary habits are connected to poor circulation, to brain fog, a whole variety of disease states as well. So the piece that I want to highlight is that we are at risk of these things kind of regardless of how much we exercise. And I think that's the part that's a bit mind-blowing. And that's where stuff comes in. Stand up for fitness. So this is simply adding periods of standing rather than sitting. It's also part of what made stand-up desks such a craze for a while. And yes, you can do that. Admittedly, I used to have one. It definitely wasn't ideal for every task or every day. So let's go through some other ideas because especially now as we're working from home, many of us don't necessarily have, the stand-up desks. So I think the other thing that's very much in the zeitgeist right now is this idea of exercise snacks. And we've talked about this over and over again in different varieties, different types. So remember we had the nutrition nugget DWDS, drink water, do squats. So not quite the same as standing for 5 to 10 minutes every hour, yet it does still help us get the blood flowing. I love this 5 or 10 minutes being a short walk. So could you make something a phone call? And maybe just commit to standing or walking around your house or your office for the duration of that phone call. Maybe it ends up being a couple minutes of stretching. You could even do a couple squats by your desk or while holding onto the kitchen counter, the kitchen sink, if you want to be able to sort of hold both sides versus just an edge. Could you stretch or do arm circles or toe touches while you wait for water to boil or the toaster to ding, right? Or maybe while your coffee brews. And it might also be enjoyable to, like we talk about taking a dance break. So put on some music that you like and take that dance break. I love walking after eating. You could do it after any meal, make it a family thing to walk after dinner or a quick chat with a coworker while walking after lunch. Maybe, especially as the weather starts to get nicer for those of us who live in areas where it was very cold this winter. So as the weather starts to get nicer, maybe you pick up a new hobby that's a little bit more active. I know somebody who recently started gardening in the last couple years. Now, of course, choose what works for you, certainly taking into consideration your own capacity, any challenges or mobility challenges that you have, and preferences count too. So it's not about doing things that you don't like to do. It's about experimenting and finding a handful of things that you do enjoy and then sprinkling those in. For me, when it's midday, if I'm dressed in like real clothes, not leggings, I don't want to have to change. I don't want to get sweaty. So I'm choosing options that won't do that. Another tip here. Set reminders. Set reminders on your phone or in your calendar. If you're like me, it needs to be a calendar event with a description of what I'm supposed to do so that when the alarm goes off, when the alert goes off, it tells me what it's for. And maybe make it even more fun. Go back to our nutrition nugget on temptation bundling, and you could add that to your stand up for fitness. But that's the scoop on stuff. Stand up for fitness. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I truly love hearing from you, your ideas, your takeaways, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Tara Vanderdusen, thank you again for joining us. And friend, if you are not already a member, join us in the Happy Healthy Hub. You'll go to asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and above all, supports your health. On top of this week's episode in full video with behind the scenes content, your 24/7 Ask Me Anything on the community board, you'll get this week's recipe for wild mushroom and grass-fed beef meatballs. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.